allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Join me in a moment of silence. Thank you very much. Please silence your phones and papers. Item number 1, do we have any citizen concerns? I'm hearing none. I will ask for item number 2, approval of the agenda, and I will move approval.
Second.
Motion by DeWitt, second by Raddig. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Items 3 through 8 constitute a consent agenda of routine action items to be considered by one motion. Items pass unanimously unless a separate vote is requested by a board member. Item 3, approval of the minutes of June 12, 2018 meeting. Item 4, approval of claims. Item 5, human resources, approval of memorandum of personnel transactions. Item 6, board administration, approval of lifting tax suspension for initials ES. Item 7, county treasurer, approval of resolution for the abatement of taxes for the United States of America. Item 8A, consideration of permit for working in the county right-of-way for John Wessling. 8B, consideration of a permit for working in the county right-of-way for the city of Cushing.
I'll move the consent agenda.
I will second the motion by Mr. Raddig. Anybody concerned about number 7, abatement of taxes for the whole United States? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Human resources, approval of purchase of cyber liability insurance for FY 18-19.
Melissa Thomas, Human Resources. This will be the 3rd year that we'll have this cyber insurance, and basically what it covers is if we do have any cyber attacks, and it's risk management in case so they don't have access to all of our citizens' information.
I'll move it.
So, okay.
I will second the motion by Taylor. Any other questions for HR Director? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Pass 5-0. We're probably a little early for Mr. Auditor. Can we start our set time at 4:35, a couple minutes early?
Can I ask our HR Director a question?
Yes.
Melissa? That's okay. I was going to ask you did this go out for RFP on I know we may not be required, but I was just wondering on this side.
This did not, because it
didn't meet the threshold.
No, price didn't change.
Have we looked at best costs and practices on this, or is it?
I have not for the cyber insurance.
Okay. Is that something we can do in the future, just to get another vote?
Absolutely.
And then for our general insurance, is that something that I know we were speaking a little earlier, that we have gone out to RFP for a while on, and can you talk about the rates just a little bit as far as our guarantee?
We have not gone, as far as I know, since 2012. We were guaranteed our rates for our property and liability insurance for 3 years. So those rates we're guaranteed. The 3rd year is coming up, but we're not under any contract to stay under those rates. So we can sure go out and look.
Okay, in order to create an RFP like that would take several months or
probably around
process?
Yeah, about 4 or 5 months altogether to get the whole process started and completed. So.
Thank you very much. I was just trying to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, buy us a couple of minutes, but also I think it's a good practice from time to time. I've had Progressive for a long time, but it's time to look and see if Geico or what, so that may be a healthy practice in the future. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Close enough? Urbane question.
Item 10, Board Administration, public hearing and sale of property parcels ending in 009 and 008, also known as 1900 and 1902 Bryan Street. Public Hearing is now open.
I'm Linda Kraft from 1904 Bryan Street.
Okay.
And I would like to make the minimum bid of $792 for,
You can do that, but we're still in the public hearing.
okay.
So we're going to, is there anybody that wishes to speak for or against the sale of this property?
Hearing none, Mr. Chair, I move that the public hearing be closed.
Second.
Second by Potabom, motion by Taylor. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. The public hearing is now closed. We are open for bids on these properties. And Mrs.?
Mrs., I'm a widow, so, yeah, Mrs., I guess. I'm not quite used to that.
But you're going in for the minimum bid of $792?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Do we have any other bids on these properties? Going once? Can you come up here, sir, and identify yourself?
Randall Roost, I live at 1923 Boyce,
And you said at $800?
$800.
Okay, do we have a counter? 825?
850.
850? 900?
950.
950 for Mr. Roost?
975.
1,000.
May I make a comment on this, on the property?
Yes.
There is no way anybody can build on this property because there's not enough leeway from the street to the edge of the property. I'm just not sure why anybody else would be interested in it.
Understood.
I'm Paul Kraft, her son.
Okay. We're well aware of the property, so,
Because it's a John Whitworth property.
okay.
I mean, I maintain that property.
And it's,
Property hasn't been maintained for 30 years.
well, we're not here to discuss that. We're not going to get into that. So we're at $1,000 bid from Mr. Roost. Do we have any other bids on those properties?
Hearing none, Mr. Chair, I move that the property be sold to Mr. Roos for $1,000.
I will second that motion by Taylor.
Plus cost of fees.
All those in favor of selling the properties for $1,000 to Mr. Roos, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Congratulations. And Karen will take care of you there, sir. Item 11, Iowa Drainage District Association presentation of annual report. Mr. Torbert.
You even pronounced it right, which is unusual. Good morning, or good afternoon, I should say. My name is John Torbert. I'm Executive Director of the Iowa Drainage District Association. And as you may or may not know, I make a round each year to talk to my county boards of supervisors who are members of the association and let them know what's going on at both the federal and state level. I think it's good for you all to have some face time with me, and appreciate the opportunity to be on your agenda. First of all, let me talk briefly about what's going on at the federal level. I think most of you are aware of the Waters of the United States proposal that was put into effect several years ago. We had a lot of concerns about that as the Iowa Drainage District Association because in our view that would have subjected drainage districts to regulation by the EPA. The proposal was put into effect. But literally the day after it was put into effect, there were a number of lawsuits filed to stop implementation. Iowa was one of the states that sued. So we had a federal court that basically put a stay on it and said, we're not going to implement that until the federal issues are resolved. So that was the first thing that happened. Subsequent to that, of course, we have a new administration that comes into Washington. We have a new EPA administrator. And one of the things that Mr. Pruitt does upon assuming his position was to start the process of backing out that rule and returning us to the situation that existed before. So we were sort of under the impression that everything was a done deal and everything was said and done. However, nothing at the federal level goes as you exactly expected, so the decision by EPA to try to back the rule out has now been challenged in court. So now we have court proceedings pending against EPA again, this time trying to keep the rule in effect. And the last wrinkle of that is just last week now, EPA issued a new Waters of the United States rule and is seeking to put that into effect. So that's basically in a public comment period. Frankly, I've not had a chance to look at it yet, so I don't really know what is in there. But my supposition is that I don't think that we're going to see anything in there that's going to alarm us. As drainage districts, we'll certainly wait to see that and see if that's the case. But we'll take a look at that, and if there are some things in there that give us concern, we will certainly file public comment on that and continue to monitor this process as it goes through. So that's where we are at the federal level. At the state level, let me mention, first of all, let me go back and talk a little bit about the lawsuit that was filed against the drainage districts in 3 counties by Des Moines Water Works. As you know, that suit was dismissed, thank goodness, by Judge Bennett last March, a year ago. He dismissed the lawsuit, and that is good. I mean, that was certainly our hope. But the cautionary note that I want to give about that dismissal was that the central tenet of the lawsuit was never litigated. The lawsuit, its basic purpose, there were a number of things in it, but its main purpose was to try to have drainage districts regulated under the Clean Water Act. So what the lawsuit said is that drainage tile should be treated like any other factory, for lack of a better term, and water that comes out of a drain tile should be regulated just like something that would come out of a factory discharge. And you all, then, if that would have come to pass, would have to go get permits, which don't exist, by the way, to continue to be able to have landowners drain their land. That was never litigated. The lawsuit was dismissed on different grounds. And basically, Judge Bennett, in dismissing the lawsuit, said 3 things. First of all, you have government suing government, which you can't have. Secondly, he said, these are really policy issues that are appropriately addressed by the legislature and Congress, not by a federal judge sitting in Sioux City, and that if the legislature wants to step in and regulate drainage districts, they can. If EPA or the Congress sees fit to regulate drainage districts, they can do so. So far, they have not done so. So the judge said that's not an appropriate place for me to be. That's policy issues best decided somewhere else, which we fully agree with. The last thing he talked about, and I think this is the most important part, is he talked about what he called redressability. And his comment was that in looking at the lawsuit and in looking what the plaintiffs asked for against drainage districts, I have to look as a federal judge at that and see if you all, speaking as drainage district trustees, have the ability to do the things that the lawsuit would ask you to do. And his ruling was that you don't. The bottom line is that you all, as drainage district trustees, don't have the ability to control the landowners who drain land. You can't tell them how to farm. You can't tell them what crops to put in and where to put those crops. You can't tell them to put in conservation practices. You can't control any of that. And that's what the suit would have sought. It essentially would have turned you into the nitrate police. And what the judge said was, in my view, county drainage district trustees don't have the authority to take those kinds of actions. And he made it very clear that drainage districts are controlled by statute. The only powers you have are the powers that are outlined in drainage law. And the difference, you all acting as county supervisors when you're wearing your supervisor's hat have county home rule. So you can take actions where the state law is silent. You can take actions in those areas where you're not prohibited from doing so by state law. You can do that as a county supervisor. County drainage district trustee, you cannot do that. You don't have home rule. So the only powers and authorities you have are those that are specifically outlined in state law. And as an aside, I would say that those powers and duties are sometimes not as clear as we would like them to be. Sometimes they're open for interpretation, which some would say is a good thing, some would say is not a good thing. And I'll give you an example. Drainage law, buried about halfway through the chapter in the middle of the paragraph, is a sentence that says drainage district trustees can spend money, trustee money, for the benefit of the district. That's it. Benefit of the district. Doesn't say what benefit is, doesn't define that. So it leaves that open to interpretation. And we have had questions come to our office about, is this a benefit of the district? And can we make the case this is a benefit to the district? An example I would give is we had a trustee-run district that wanted to purchase liability insurance. They couldn't find any place in the law that allowed them to spend drainage district money for the purchase of insurance. Said, is that a legal expenditure? I said, well, talk to our attorney, and my opinion and our attorney's opinion is that you can probably make the case that having your district protected by insurance is for the benefit of the district. So it's probably a legal expense to do that, but bear in mind if you do so, it is open to challenge and would have to stand up in a court of law. So the central tenet of the suit, and that is the regulation of drainage districts, was never addressed, which is a long way of saying that could still be brought up in a different venue by a different party if they chose to pursue that. And I'm not aware of anybody that's going to do that, but we certainly are watching that and will be there to provide assistance if need be. Last thing I'll talk about is the legislature this year, and the positive coming out of the legislature is that we now have additional funding for water quality practices as a result of a bill that was actually the first bill that passed this session. First bill that Governor Reynolds signed into law this year does create an additional pot of money for water quality improvements, and basically what that money can be used for, it'll go to Department of Agriculture and Land Stewardship. They can award the funds to landowners for conservation practices on the land. So there is a new pot of money that is created. I would say also that as drainage district trustees, you are eligible for those funds under the law. We made sure that you all were eligible for those funds. So for example, if you are going to do a drainage improvement in one of your districts that involves some pretty significant reconstruction, and you say, it looks like, they talk to the engineer and say, it looks like we can incorporate some conservation practices while we're doing that improvement. We can incorporate a wetland or a bioreactor or whatever. If you decide to go that way, the cost of that conservation practice, you could apply for state funds to offset the cost of that from your landowners. Yes, sir.
So would that take an application then through IDALS, or would that be through our county engineer's office directly to you, or how does that work?
My understanding is to take an application through IDALS. I have requested an interpretation of that from the state water quality coordinator. He's actually going to write an article for a newsletter on the application process, but my understanding at this point is that it would be through IDALS.
Okay, thank you. And Ben, you can pass it along to our county engineer who's away at a conference, but appreciate it.
The other thing I would say is the new money is great, but I think everybody would agree that it's not enough. Even Governor Reynolds, in signing the bills, her comments were, this is not the end, it's the beginning, and we need to continue discussions on ways to find additional funds for water quality. And my supposition in standing before you today is that probably the next source of that is going to be what is called the Iowa Waterland Legacy Fund, and that's the 3/8 cent sales tax that everybody has been talking about. That Constitution says the next time the legislature increases the sales tax, 3/8 cents of that will go directly for conservation programs, and a large share of that will go to water quality. The legislature was actively engaged in the discussions on that this year, all the way up until the final day, in terms of putting a sales tax into effect. Obviously, the end result was that they did not. Conventional wisdom is that you don't do big tax increases in an election year if you're a legislator, and this obviously is an election year, so I think that probably worked against the sales tax this year. But I think it'll happen. I'm not going to sit here and predict when, but I don't think it's a matter of if it'll happen. I think it's a matter of when it will happen. And the thing that I think you probably ought to look at is that the other action the legislature took this year, of course, it was a significant reduction in taxes, which impacts their financial ability to raise money. So I think a year down the road, 2 years down the road, if the state is suddenly having financial trouble and trouble paying bills and trouble meeting obligations, a sales tax might start to look pretty good to them at that point. And I don't know that that will happen, but I will stand here and say that we will have a sales tax increase at some point, and 3/8 of that will go to conservation programs. I just can't predict exactly when. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody? I think we'll call it good. Thank you.
Well, I put 2 hours on my meter, so I wasted $1, but I think we're good. Thank you all for your time. I really
Thank you, sir.
appreciate it. And we appreciate your membership. I want to make sure you know that. Okay?
You bet. Thank you. Item 12, secondary roads. Approval of contract for project number B82.
B82 is a box culvert replacing a bridge on 140th Street near Kossuth Avenue.
Any questions for Ben? I'll move it.
Second.
Motion by Potabom, second by Radig. Any board discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Approval of contract for gravel haul project.
This is an annual project where we haul to each district to a number of roadways and place the material directly on the road, which is a good benefit. I think last week we looked at some bids that were submitted by Everest and Hallett's, with Hallett's having the low bid.
Those about the only two that do that around here?
You know, actually, we were very lucky. I actually went after Everest to supply a bid this year, and since they've taken over pits up near the Akron area from Hickman's and Washta, it was surprising their bid was somewhat interesting. I figured it'd be way out, but it was not. So we expect to see more from them as far as our stockpiles and some other projects we're going to be doing with their gravel pits. So I think good competition makes for low prices.
I'll move 12B.
He motioned first.
Oh, sorry, then I'll second 12B.
Motion by Potabom, second by Mr. Radig. Any further questions or board discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Thank you, Ben. Okay. Item 13, reports on committee meetings. Mr. Taylor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So, had the interstate justification report. I represented Woodbury County. Mayor Bob Scott was there and Mayor John Winkle, respectively from Sioux City and Sergeant Bluff. We have been waiting 6 to 7 months to see if we could keep moving the proverbial football down the field on the project. We were waiting for a review of the traffic counts to come back. As you know, this has been an over 2.5 year long project. Here's the bottom line up front. The traffic counts by themselves do not justify it, the movement of the interchange. However, from a projected future growth south of Sioux City and the impending growth from Seaboard Triumph and other ways, this justification could still go forward and potentially receive a favorable report at the federal level. Along with that, the county, who's the lead on the project, has spent roughly $536,000 to date. Costs will be exceeded. Instead of $600,000, it'll be $648,000. Now, that was originally floated out in the very beginning, and we have evidence of that. So here's kind of the bottom line. I had and shared a lot of heartburn on this because I think it's a significant hill to climb and a threshold to justify an IJR change based on economic development in the future. However, I think Mayor Scott makes a timely point that at this point we've spent 82.5%. You know, we spent 535 out of 648. We know for a fact that if we don't, get this through to completion, that it won't happen. We know for a fact that there will be no federal, no state, no MPO money. So I think that we should, and I think it'll be the county engineer's recommendation as well, we'll both put this forward on an impending agenda item. I think we should see it through to completion. Now, whether or not that is the ultimate will of the county to spend $5 to $8 million on a $20 to $25 million interchange, that's a different question. But we may have, like they built out in Davenport, and once they built that out in Davenport, the growth sprung up around it. I don't want to take that off the table that there could be significant federal, state, and MPO money. So bottom line is I think we ought to spend the remaining 17.5% of the original cost. Otherwise, it is all money down the drain. So that's kind of the long and short of it. If there are any questions.
Anybody?
Well, I think it should move forward, and they put an interchange out of Waukee that didn't pass the traffic threshold. So if Des Moines gets one, we should.
I think that's what they say in the eastern part of the state. Thank you.
Any other reports on committee meetings, please?
How about a pre-committee report for committee next week?
Let's have it.
So next week we have our Sioux Rivers meeting, and there's something I'd like to have on the agenda, and I know Sheila came here from Siouxland Mental Health. It's been a big concern of mine that we keep the 23-hour observation that keeps nurses there on hand at the Crisis and Stabilization Center. There must be a little miscommunication because you had said too that they believe at the Rolling Hills region that they would like to keep 23-hour observation. So in discussions we had today, they would like to see another 149,852 at least brought up on the agenda next week for us to vote to add to the budget for the Crisis and Stabilization Center to keep 23-hour observation. So I'd like you to know that I'm going to have that requested on the agenda. I'm going to email Aaron to add that, and probably call as well to make sure you got the email. I guess any questions on that, or Sheila, would you like to add anything to that too?
My name is Sheila Martin. I'm the CEO of Siouxland Mental Health. I just want to say that we implemented this program 2 years ago with the help of Sioux Rivers Region. There was 2 programs implemented, 23-hour observation and holding and the crisis stabilization. We are accredited in both programs. I think it's important to understand that. We are the only second facility in the state of Iowa that's accredited in 23-hour observation and holding. That program allows nurses to be on site 24 hours a day to assess patients and to be able to administer drug tox screens and to be able to see if a patient is medically necessary to be admitted or to have to go to the ER. I think it's important. I think it increases liability if you eliminate that program. We're asking for additional 149,000 some odd change to be added to our contract. Going forward here, starting on July 1st, we took a $472,000 hit, and I think it's important to realize that Siouxland Mental Health lost this money at $472,000. And it's important that Woodbury County advocate for us and that we continue. This program is medically necessary for this community. These patients are going to have to go to the emergency department to be cleared in order to be admitted. How is that eliminating access barriers for our patients that are in a mental health crisis? It's not. So we need to continue to fund this program, and hopefully this is going to be a reimbursable service soon with DHS and our managed care companies. We're in the process of our contracts right now are with AmeriGroup and United. We're hoping that we're going to start receiving payment, and we are projecting a revenue of $250,000. That is conservative for next year. We were supposed to start billing on February 8th. Unfortunately, our IME application stood with IME for 98 days until it was approved and passed on to the MCOs. There's not a whole lot that we can do about that, and hopefully we're going to be able to bill, but we need additional funds in order to run this program this next year until we go to Rolling Hills. Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, and
yes.
The $472,000 wasn't the only thing cut from Siouxland Mental Health.
No.
This is just from the Crisis and Stabilization Center. Total cuts were closer to $900,000, is that?
Give or take, yeah.
So I think it's important for the public to know that. I think it should be on the agenda that we try to get some funding back here. I mean, it's 95% of all the users of the Crisis and Stabilization Center are from Woodbury County. So we have the most vested in this facility as well.
So do you think it's accurate to say that these are our most vulnerable of all of our population of 102,000 in Woodbury County? These are the most vulnerable patients as far as mental health services, is that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Patients are coming in a mental health crisis, and they could be suicidal, present with suicidal ideation. If they are truly suicidal, we need to send them to the hospital, but they could have thoughts of death, delusions. They could be under influence of alcohol, drugs, mood-altering substances. And we could possibly have to tell them, I'm sorry, we can't admit you right now. We need to send you somewhere else in order to get medical clearance.
So if 23-hour observation is no longer there, then does that do anything? Let's say it's 1 o'clock in the morning. I mean, what's the...
Well, we have a nurse right there, right now, at 1 o'clock.
Right now, but as soon as July 1st comes in Sioux Rivers and that cut comes, and then you'll lay off nurses.
We could,
if
yes,
that,
unfortunately. We'd like not to do that.
Right.
We'd like to keep all of our staff, and we're going to do everything that we can to advocate for our staff. And advocate for our patients and for this county and for this entire region. So this also includes Sioux and Plymouth County residents too. So we are a region right now, and we want to continue to act like that. And so this is for everyone in this region. Any other questions?
You'll have that on next week's agenda.
For the Sioux Rivers region.
Rivers.
Oh, okay, for that one.
and
That's
so,
why I wanted to bring it up regarding committees now, because it's...
And if Denny Butler is here.
He had to go.
He had to go. So my other concern is that, you know, I had sent an email in February of 2018 indicating that the tax levy was going to be set too low because they had indicated this cut in January. I sent an email, I'm saying that the tax levy is going to be set too low. We need to do something about this because you're going to eliminate a program that you just started 2 years ago that is accredited in the state of Iowa. And again, ask how many other programs are accredited.
Is it still the second?
Second, yes.
So it's,
for 23-hour observation and holding. The only
There's
other
only
county
two.
that has this is Polk County, which is also a higher reimbursement rate than straight stabilization.
So if we don't stand this up, there's no reimbursement, that's for sure.
If there is.
If we don't continue the program currently, there's not going to be any reimbursement for it.
There is reimbursement for stabilization. However, those patients that present at our door, for example, the police department or the sheriff's department who are bringing patients to us, we're no longer going to be able to admit them on site. They are going to have to transport up to the hospital in order to get medical clearance. And how does that eliminate barriers for our patients in a mental health crisis?
And then will you see them afterwards, or you think then
Maybe.
that you have no
Maybe.
idea after that?
There's no idea. Maybe. They might come back. They might not.
creates a new step, a new barrier for somebody who may be suicidal.
Absolutely. Somebody's having thoughts about hurting themselves, and they show up at our door at the stabilization unit, and we say, we're sorry. You have to go somewhere else in order to get medical clearance. We can't admit you. How would you feel? So, absolutely. This needs to go on the Sioux Rivers Region agenda for next week. We need additional funding to fund this program, and especially a Chapter 24 accredited program.
Just want to make one follow-on comment. The MOU that's still out there that we're hoping represents the very minimal request to be able to function as a region this next year. Still hopeful that they'll come to the table, do the right thing. It does state in there that there's a set budget. However, by unanimous consent or alteration of that, that could be, there's room in there for the 3 counties to be able to make a decision just like this.
I do have one question, if I may ask. Is there funding available in the Sioux Rivers region budget, whether in reserves or whatnot, to be able to fund the $149,000? If anybody can answer that.
There should be funding in the reserves available for that, and if not, I believe there's programs that are non-core programs that, in my opinion, should probably be cut in order to fund this. To me, I don't see too many priorities that should be higher in a mental health region than crisis and stabilization. I mean, just, you were there at the strategic planning just, what, 8 months ago, a year ago? I don't even remember what it was now. And that was the #1 success of the Sioux Rivers region, was the Crisis and Stabilization Center. Then to just a year later say, well, let's just make it a stabilization center and 23-hour observation.
And I think it's high time the MCOs start doing what the MCOs are doggone supposed to be doing. I think we can all agree about that. Because if there's somebody else to be torqued off at this whole thing.
Absolutely. Any other questions?
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sheila.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Any further reports on committee meetings? Item 14, citizen concerns. Do we have any citizen concerns? Hearing none, do we have any board concerns? I will start with, we kind of penciled in September 11th, which is a Tuesday, for the employee luncheon. And I'm sure we'll be following up on that in the near future, probably getting that at least prices and such. So Karen has been guiding me gently into getting this thing going, so we're kind of sitting on 9/11 so far. Any other board concerns?
All right, another fight over cream corn, huh? I look forward to that.
Over what?
Cream corn.
Oh, yeah. Never know. I have one quick one, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
I have both a combination of joining my family overseas. My wife hasn't gone back to her home in Vietnam, or family's home in Vietnam, so I'm going to be gone for 2 or 3 meetings and another one getting picked up for a slot at the Pentagon for some annual training. So that'll be late July and mid-August, so I'll try to call in if available.
By the way, our town hall meeting, if you were done,
Yep.
our town hall meeting will be held in Hornick on next Thursday.
What location is that at?
The Hornick, I forget the name of it, but they've got a rather large community center type thing for the size of the town that supposedly holds quite a few people. So Smithland will not, or Smithland City Council will not be there. I don't know why. I was just informed yesterday that Smithland City Council would be a joint Smithland, Hornick, and Sloan Town Hall. So that is next Thursday at 6.
And I'm not sure if I will be there. I have a pension board meeting in Des Moines that day. I'm going to try to hustle back.
That's right on your way back.
It just depends on what time we get done with our meeting in Des Moines.
Okay.
And we have a new non-voting member in Senator Carlin. So that'll be our first meeting with him.
Okay.
You guys carpooling?
Nope. I have to go down a day early.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to bring up was the July golf tournament with Silouxland Mental Health. Was there any interest in anyone else, maybe? I'm not a golfer. I'm terrible,
Absolutely
so
not.
we could be the worst.
I will pay whatever it is, but
Well, maybe you could pay for somebody, county employee to get.
yeah, I'll pay for a county employee. Michelle just raised her hand, so we're doing this. Yeah, if somebody wants to go and as a golfer, I will more than. Will make me try to put the ball in the hole.
So I'm willing to if anyone else.
Any other board?
Yeah, well.
It's a scramble, I believe.
Any other board concerns? We are adjourned.